Well, it's the crack of fucking dawn before 7 a.m. in Helsinki, Finland, and I would like to welcome you back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is what is it? It's Wednesday. Hey, yeah, have a happy Wednesday in your life. It's hump day, so go fucking hump something. Hump a Bitcoin, if you will. It's not real, but we pretend that it is. Anyways, so there's plenty to talk about today with Bitcoin coming back down from that 12,500-ish target that we hit a couple days ago. Or I guess it was actually more so yesterday. But backing off that area and actually taking out the short-term time frame range along the way at 12,100 that we spoke about yesterday. So how does that change things in the short and medium term timeframes? We'll be following up on that, as well as overall world markets, because there is quite a few very interesting things going on over there as well, which I do believe has major implications with the greater whole. And we can now put the focus on the Krown Chain application. By the way, I just realized before I do anything else in the fucking morning, as I've been doing these videos incredibly early, I don't do anything except the first words out of my fucking mouth are on this video, which is kind of a strange thing to think about. But you know what? I'm glad to be here in the nice early morning, perhaps with other Eastern European or maybe very vampire-esque type infused people over there from the Western Hemisphere. First thing in the fucking morning, crack of dawn, baby. Anyways, open interest still hanging above 2.6 billion, which is of interest here because we are still maintaining above that $2.5 billion marker, which does suggest that Bitcoin is still playing in the higher term time frame regions that we spoke about before. So that whole dynamic has not necessarily been taken away just yet by Bitcoin's short term and medium term kind of faltering below the $12,100-ish region. Now it still could change around there, but what is of very much interest here is Bitcoin dominance coming up quite a bit. So while Bitcoin price action did come down, dominance did shoot up, which suggests that a lot of alts actually came down harder versus US dollar versus Bitcoin than Bitcoin, in comparison. So that is what's driving the ratio right now. But typically we don't see that interplay in more healthy rotational-ish type markets. What we want to see is when Bitcoin comes down, alts actually move up versus Satoshis. And in fact, we actually have the exact opposite going on right here. Now, 1% is not all that big of a deal, but it is of interest right now. And well, while one day does not necessarily make a trend, if this does start to happen, over the course of the next couple weeks, that would be very concerning as well for the greater whole. Looking at the fear and greed index, ticking out an 80 right now from an 82, so still in the more greedy zone. And we can go look at the data tab right here and check out what's going on in the Bitcoin global funding rate, which did come down massively starkly from that 0.12% region, which did denote the local high, so to speak. So we've been speaking about this for a while now, that I've been saying it's not really until this gets above 0.1% where it does typically denote local highs and local lows, or well, on the case of a negative rate, a local low. In this case right here, we actually did get that interplay going. So there you go. Nice little, sometimes that, well, it's not really technical analysis, but sometimes that global funding rate analysis actually sometimes works. Anyways, coming down now, and I do believe that it's going to probably settle back into this region. Not that means really anything. It's just when it only gets over those sort of absolute values, that's when it does become a little bit harrowing for that side. Anyways, looking at the fear and greed index, you can see that we're starting to curl down here as well. Again, does have correlations with price action, but not, well, let's just go look at price action, actually. There we go. All right, so Bitcoin on the 4-hour right here. So we did break the $12,100 region right here yesterday. I was saying that I don't have a strong opinion whether Bitcoin does or does not break 12.1. Does or does not test 12.1, but if it does break 12.1, I'd be looking for a move back down here towards about 11.8 to 11.7 region, and I believe we've already got 11.8, so I do think that there's still a little bit more room for another drive to the downside, somewhere perhaps in line with this rising trend line that Bitcoin's been putting its lows on ever since we got into this sort of, dragging consolidation range from late July. But overall, as long as we're riding this trend line right here, I actually don't really have anything to change from a higher term time frame perspective. It's all just on the short and medium term time frame perspective. So the relevancy of today and what I'd really be keeping a keen eye on as today goes forwards is this area right here, quite literally at 12,050. Now this could be flipped down once again, actually. But I do feel like because Bitcoin did have a really stark move back down below this region, I'd actually err on the side of conservativeness. However, more aggressive traders will actually just be using the 21 to kind of judge this at 12,000. Now, this is just a difference of $50 right there, but well, $50 is $50, right? But if Bitcoin does get back above that region, I'd look for another run back up towards 12.3 to 12.5 region and test this area right here. But as long as we're below 12.50, I do think that we're going to be filling out this area at the very least. And more importantly, if Bitcoin actually does break this, and this is the critical thing perhaps that I could say today, or it sounds fucking lofty, doesn't it? But you know what I'm trying to say. If Bitcoin does break this 11,700, I guess it's kind of coming in there, maybe a little bit lower than that. It depends what time of day it approaches that, but as you know, as it is rising over time, right now it'd actually be technically like 11,650, and then maybe later today / early tomorrow would be 11.7 and slightly over 11.7. So I'll just say 11.7, but understand it's a little bit of a range here. But if it were to break that region, that would be the next big warning flag, and very likely spurring about another move. How much would that be? Like 400 to $500 lower, somewhere in the low 11,000, somewhere between about 11.2 and 11,000 even. That's at the point where things actually do start to look long term quite not so nice, because Bitcoin actually would have completed a reversal on the daily, of which right now we still have an uptrend. We still have higher highs and higher lows, and we will be getting higher lows as long as Bitcoin's essentially closing dailies above 11,500, which is essentially where the 21 exponential moving average is right now. Now, curious to see if we actually have bearish divergence on this last run here, and technically yes we do. Between this point and this point there is actually bearish divergence initiated, which does make me skeptical as well for another move to the downside, as well as daily jewel kind of lining up for a sell signal here as well. And I do believe that the 12-hour was kind of given a little bit of a hint here too yesterday, which I believe that we pointed out. So overall, I actually do think that things could come down here a little bit more. But I still wouldn't be switching around like my long-term analysis until those critical levels are met. I mean, doesn't mean that it can't happen. Just I want to see proof, not promises first. Let me make sure that I'm recording. I am recording and the microphone's working, so we're off to a good start this morning. Another day of no coffee, and it's actually starting to not feel all that bad right now. But momentum is starting to turn down in just about every time frame that matters, especially like 12-hour Stochs coming down. I believe daily are coming down as well. Yes, indeed they are. 10 hours should be coming down too, actually precipitating all of that. And shout out to Gravy for calling that one out yesterday on the live. But overall, you know, it actually does look like things want to test back down into this region just from this perspective. So I would be defensive against anything, anything to like 11,650 to 11,700-ish region. If those areas start to break, that's where I do think that the floodgates start to get opened a little bit more down to the low 11,000s, and that's really the message that I want to nail in today. But for right now, and as long as the daily is following that area, could very easily have another move back down to 11.6-ish region, we could call it 11.550, and bounce off there, completing the bearish divergence typical play off of the daily right here down to the 21 exponential moving average. Very classic shit, and I'd be looking for it to get picked up probably somewhere right around there, at the very least for a bounce on the short-term time frame. Doesn't mean that it's going to turn a reversal, but at the very least probably a tradable bounce. Now, looking at the higher term time frames like the 2-day and the 3-day, I actually don't really see anything of too much too much problematicness here, I guess. 2-day just looks like a backfill on last 2-day dildo. However, this one is closing. It is closing tonight, actually. It is closing tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Having trouble with my words right now. Maybe I spoke too soon about that damn coffee. But overall, 2-day, 2-day, still closing about 11.9, still overall fine. However, if, and this is the critical thing, and this actually could really put in like a major reversal here if this were to happen. But if the 2-day were to close, somewhere right around here at about 11,850, in line with what we have on the last 2-day dildo, that's what would create these two guys right here, which is technically called a what the fuck is it called? It's called a pinstripe or fucking Jesus Christ, man. There goes the coffee once again. Tweezer tops, yeah, there we go. Okay, that's a proper technical term. If it were to close something like right around here, and then have continuation on the following one after it gets set in stone tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, that would create a tweezer top reversal, which actually typically does have some pretty big implications, also initiating bearish divergence along the way too. And I'd be looking for a move, down to $11,000 base. And probably a bounce there as well. So that's what's at stake coming tonight around all the daily 2 days and maybe even the 3 days closing as well. Let me double check. No, it's not. Actually, we just got a fresh one today. And the 3-day is, 3-day is kind of inconsequential here, not really giving us all that much. I'm curious how this one looks historically speaking. Did we close above that last pivot point? No, unfortunately, no. but not really giving us much either way here. From a major moving average perspective, still bullish. From a momentum oscillator perspective, oh motherfucker, I just clicked it off. God damn it, I really hate when I do that. All right, let's just get this back over here. Oh, you motherfuck. Hold on. Let's see if I can just load this up. You bastard. How dare you? Oh, man. Okay, thank God. All right, it saved it over here, so that's good. All right, get the fuck out of my face. Jesus Christ. God damn it, TradingView. Sorry. I'm having my own autistic rages right now. I apologize about that. Very embarrassing. But yeah, let's go check it out right here. And what do we see? We do see that 3-day Stokes are actually getting a little bit tired within this region and also meeting a trend line that has been forming since actually February highs. In fact, might I remind you, February highs were all the way back on over here on this major high at about 10,400, 10,500, connected with this major high right here. And then once again, kind of what we're doing right now. So could Bitcoin play out some major downside from this region? Possibly yes, but I'd still be going level by level. That's sort of the main disposition that I'd have on this one. Sorry, and I just realized that was not the 2-day, or sorry, I was looking at the 2-day, not the 3-day. Here's a 3-day right here. Same sort of thing though. You can kind of fit a regression in there. And historical volatility percentile being this low does say that we are winding up for a move relatively soon. We can see that this is kind of the culmination. Oh, I guess I already have a trend line in there. This is the culmination of a 3, 4, 5, March, April, May, June, July, August, almost 5-month long contraction phase. So we are setting up for a pretty damn big move out of this base, whether it be to the upside or the downside. The upside resolution points are pretty much, the same as we've been speaking about, whereas the downside sort of reversal points are what we just spoke about. Those are the ones that I feel most comfortable about. Essentially 11,650 to 11,700 for medium term, bringing us back down to $11,000 base, below $11,000. Very likely we see a long-term reversal all the way back down below 10,000 into this region right here, somewhere around 9,800 and 9,900. But I want to be very, very specific in saying this. As long as those things do not happen, I actually do still look at this as long-term bullish. And the reason why I would say that is because traditional markets, just the world markets in general, are, well, let me show you. Nasdaq Futures, we did hit that $11,400 target. In fact, exceeding it right now towards 11,423.70 cents. Closing on new all-time highs, looking very, 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 very good here, and looking like it's good for another drive actually as well. So while we did hit this target, just going from fib to fib, I suppose now we could do this. We could, well, let's keep that one in there. Typically, you will see a short-term pullback born upon those regions. Maybe it does play back down to 11.3, but overall, I'll be looking for a bounce there, and very likely a test up to the 2.272 region right here, which is 11,527 and a quarter actually. So I'm just taking out algo targets. These are just general areas that they will be aware of. There's not really too much to be done in a blue sky breakout like this. We could look at expected moves with this as well, but it's only going to give us what's relevant for today's price action. We can forecast out as well, but I find that it's not as accurate when you forecast out, or at least it's not as useful for myself as a trader. So looking at this right here, yes, probably does get another drive higher. We do see on the lower term timeframes, it's more or less continuation, and building out of this space right here, we could actually probably even fit in another measure move here as well if you want to make a sloppy, what do you want to call that? Kind of a very sloppy base, pointed up towards that next region, towards 11,550, towards somewhere right around here is what it looks like, 11,550 to 11,530-ish region. So a nice $20 area right there. But overall, the more important thing is that we have new all-time highs, just as we said, coming into this week was likely, and I'd be looking for new all-time highs. There's nothing resembling a reversal just yet. This is all continuation as it is. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but I'd be looking for, at the very least, divergence on daily RSI to happen before I denote or call this a reversal, and we don't, or even consider a reversal, and we don't really have that right here. Could it form bearish divergence? Yes, but you really don't see it in this range all that often. And more importantly, it does look to me like this is continuation, so you can't even compare those points to begin with. And on top of that, you can see that we do have a nice falling channel right here, which typically does break out to the upside. Not super accurate, but overall this is a consolidation around the bullish control zone between the neutral and the bullish control zone, which typically is going to lead for a prolonged move into the bullish control zone. So that's what I'd be looking at right there, and that does line up with the price action, does line up with trend, does line up with a lot of other things, and looking overall good. And we can go check out E-mini futures for SPY as well. Do we have new all-time highs here as well? I think we got just shy, actually. Yeah, 33.93 in 3/4 high of yesterday versus 33.97.5 all-time high in February 2020. So this is of interest right now too. Very likely going to have a chance to actually fully get a new all-time high, probably sometime this week, if not probably even today. I have no reason to be looking at a reversal on this thing as long as it's above 3363.25, which I think is the same area that we used yesterday. Yeah, pretty much. We could move this up a little bit there. Yeah, we can move it up to the 10 simple. So you can see that it's just continuing to ride and ride and ride to destiny and glory. And overall, I still have this measure move pointed to a little bit north of 314, it looks like. So overall, I'd be looking for a short-term move there. That would obviously imply new all-time highs. And with the correlations that we see between traditional markets and just about every market, Bitcoin included, this would suggest that, well, Bitcoin probably does pull through on the higher term timeframes. On the short and macro, things ebb and flow, obviously, especially with rotational markets. But at the end of the day, as far as the long term goes, as far as traditional markets go, as long as those are healthy, as long as those are making new all-time highs, I do think that it would be a little bit premature to be calling major reversals on any asset for that matter. Of course, there's going to be some are going to lead in. Yes, it's probably going to be some of the big techs if anything were to happen, because they pretty much drive the whole market anyway, like your Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, Google, those type of things. But for right now, and perhaps perhaps a little bit longer, they're still looking good, still looking for some more upside overall. Let's go look at Nifty 50. I've actually been enjoying looking at this more recently. Still would be bullish on this one. Got a golden cross right here, looking for a move into the blue box territory between 11,620 and 11,720-ish region. Again, all world markets looking good for another move to the upside. Triple Qs, where did they close on? New all-time highs yesterday. Wow, is that new all-time fucking highs? It looks like it's new all-time fucking highs. What about NYA? Not new all-time highs, but continuation here nonetheless, and I would be targeting moves quite a bit higher towards 13,250, somewhere right around here, it looks like. Yeah, with a nice base being put in right here, it looks like as well. And what do we see on the ruts on Russell 2000? Very similar chart here as well. Actually did already kind of hit into that region, into that same region that I have for the NYA. So I'd be looking for it actually to bounce off that region and come back down and put in a base perhaps somewhere around low 1500s. But overall, continuation here is the name of the game too on the whole, with a short-term, medium-term rejection at that critical level. And what else do we want to look at? Let's go look at some individual stocks like Tesla, Apple, and Microsoft. So did Tesla hit 2000 like we said? No, 1923. So again, I was obviously very wrong on Tesla putting in a major high right here. That, you could argue, is more so due to the 5-to-1 stock split than anything else. A lot of people are going to want to get in before that stock split happens to hold more, to get more essentially. Yes, shit like that does happen. You live long enough and you'll see everything pretty much. And if you live even long, you'll see even more than what you thought you could even see. But looking at this right here, this is why we always have areas that denote where those ideas are going to be wrong. Now, this is not to say that, this is right for you or wrong for you. It's just I'm sharing my sort of my sort of way of doing things, because I always know that in a game of statistics, there's always some percentage. There's always some odd chance that it can go against you. In this case right here, you have a little bit of an outlier situation. We take out the blue box territory right here. That was my signal for no longer being bearish on this. It's actually time to be bullish for another move to the prior high, and that was a phenomenal move and continuation. I still think $2,000 is probably on the table here, maybe even a little bit north of $2,000. We could probably come up with an extension. I'm curious if the extension matches the measure move on this one. We'll do something like this. Yeah, the 2618 is actually looking about right. But let's see, just doing, again, a very bad measure move on this one. Curious what that would line up with. Yeah, kind of where we are right now, actually. Interesting how that works out. But I do think that this one probably gets a little bit of a try higher. What is critical here, though, is that if it does take out yesterday's low, which is 1846.25, I would be looking for a medium-term reversal, actually all the way back down into the low 1700s, back down around here, actually. So this could operate as a doji dodo high, but only if we take out the bottom side of it, and then yes, I'd target to move back, back down here into the low 1700s. For right now, I'd give a nod to the trend more than anything else. Okay, what else am I missing right now? Let's see. Let's go look at Bitcoin dominance. So we did say that Bitcoin dominance was setting up for a big bounce. Is this the big bounce that everyone's looking for right now? Yeah, I do think that we're either extremely close or this is actually it, and Bitcoin's coming down to 11.7. Good. There we go. And actually, that makes me realize maybe I need to do something over here. Is there something to do? Probably not worth scalping while I'm making a fucking video. But overall, yes, this one I do think is going to work its way higher, probably another couple percent. Looking at the weekly, could we grind this area out a little bit longer and then put it in? Yeah, that's what I'm leaning a little bit more towards here. That's what I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards. And let me just see what's going on right here. Looking actually very interesting, huh? Okay, let's try that. And let's try that. Alrighty, lovely. And let's move on through it now. Okay, there you go. Bitcoin down to 11.7. Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually go to Bitcoin and see if it's going to be hitting that trend line now. I believe that it is. Yep, we're almost there. A few more bucks. Let's see, another 50. Yeah, about another $50 right here, and then I'll probably be looking for a little bit of a bouncy bounce. Or are we already there? 11.7 versus 11.650, pretty much the same fucking thing to me, really. But overall, yes, that's what I'd be having my eyes on right now. So let's go back and let's go check out Mr. Beaterall too, because he seems to have really taken a massive leg down yesterday. I'm curious how he is taking this this whole move. Yeah. Okay, so retesting the last kind of consolidation high right here. Actually just move this blue box to the liquid zone rather than the order block on the lower term time frame, something like that. Looks like we actually did just test into it. So I probably would be looking for a bounce here regardless of that. It depends where we close today's daily though. Does today's daily close above or below 420? If it closes above 420, I'd still be looking at this as an overall kind of melt up with still kind of playing in the range between 420 and 440-ish region, very likely setting up for a move towards 465, 480, the long-term liquid zone, the big bad one, the one that's ruled this one ever since July 2018. For right now, still the weekly looks like continuation as far as I'm concerned. So I actually do happen to think that this is more or less an opportunity here, especially with the very likely hidden bullish divergence that we're probably creating here. And actually, no, I'm wrong on that. That's actually very, very interesting. You'd expect to see hidden bullish divergence here if this was going to be another higher low. Now, of course, that is a 4-hour. What do we have on a 12-hour maybe? 12-hour is actually going to just be making some right now. In fact, if it were to put in a low here alongside the 21, and same thing with the daily actually obviously more powerful, but what's really scary about this is the Joule is giving a pretty damn good sell signal. So which one do I trust more? Well, as far as the Joule goes, a close below 420, yes, I would be looking for this to have major downside. Back below 400, if that were the case, probably back down to like 380 or 390 base in this region right here at the very least, and probably look at a bounce from that region and then go from there. And with that said, that's really what's going to be on my mind for the rest of the day here going into the daily total close, of which I'll be asleep, so not actually thinking about it, but I'll probably wake up at 3 a.m. and check it out and then go back to sleep, hopefully, which is what I try to do typically. Let's go over to Bitcoin futures on Cmes. Is there anything of note here? Yeah, coming down to the same areas as well. Do we have the same sort of bearish divergence? Indeed, we do. Does that mean that we're gonna get that move down to the low 11,000s? I would still say I'd be using the 10 simple as a pivot to kind of denote that to begin with. So right now, again, the 10 simple for reference would be a 10.8. Yeah, 10.826 actually, or not 10.826. Jesus Christ, man, I need some coffee. 11,826. My God, again, I apologize. I've probably gotten a lot of those, like the second digit wrong a lot of the time, just because I'm so used to saying 10 instead of 11. Apologies for that, but I blame it on the lack of coffee. I take no responsibility for that one. Okay, anyways. While we're here, let's go over the monthly as well. Has this changed anything on the monthly, just for perspective? No, not really. However, we do only have we have like another week or two. I'm just looking at my calendar right here. We have another about 2 weeks in the month, a little bit more than 2 weeks here. So depending upon how we close this monthly, I still do think that actually high 13,000s is in the cards here. Monthly Stoke still pointed nice and directly to the upside. Monthly RSI looking more or less constructive here. Probably gunning for the bullish control zone, which will get into the bullish control zone with any sort of a close on the monthly above 13,000 actually. And in monthly Jewel giving you a hot or your long signal as well. So I do happen to think that the monthly and weekly still pull through here, but I would be defensive against the lower term timeframes, granted the areas that we just spoke about. And I don't think that I really spoke about the upside very much on the lower term timeframes right now, just mostly because I don't think that it's very relevant for today's price action. But if we're looking at this right here, could we move this area down and kind of denote that continuation point a little bit lower? Yeah, we could do that. We could do something like this. So let me just get this out of the way. We'll move this down right there, this down right there, and this right here. This would be a little bit more aggressive. I do happen to think that this would get it though. Any sort of a 4-hour closure, especially above 12,000 or to a greater extent for more conservative traders, let's call it 1250, yeah, $12,050. Then I'd be looking for another move back up towards essentially 12.3 to 12.5 region here, with still 12.5 being a very interesting, not a very interesting area, although it is, but more importantly, a gatekeeper sprinting off another move towards officially 13,000, I believe it is that next level up here. Let me just double check. Yes, indeed it is, and that should be very much lining up with long-term historical levels, which we can see coming in from here from the 2-day, especially in August 2019. And sorry, not August 2019, but July 2019 right here. Yeah, exactly, from that last closure. So it's still an area of interest going forwards, but for right now, gonna be taking its time. So it's really gonna be critical how Bitcoin sets itself up in this next like week or so of trading action, as that's gonna have massive implications for driving both the weekly and monthly, of course, which makes me wonder, just because we haven't really had too much else to talk about today. Let's go look at the bi-weekly and see what this one's looking like right now. Bi-weekly is looking a little bit more toppy potentially. But did have a clear closure on new highs above July 2019 on last week's closure actually. So that is of greater interest. And while it does seem to me like we are coming back down to test that region at about 11,500, it's well, as as long as we're living above that, as long as we're closing above that, it's technically broken. It's still continuation here. I mean, this is basically giving you a greater insight into what the monthly is telling you, because the monthly already does have continuation, but obviously a bi-weekly is going to have 2x the reference points as far as our indicators go. So looking at this right now, it would seem that coming back down to this region is more or less fine, really. From a momentum also perspective, still good over here, although could be forming some bearish divergence. Very rarely do you see it come in this region right here. I do think that would be pretty unlikely. But hey, it is in the cards, I suppose, and we aren't closing this one this week. It's actually next week, so it's actually made closing around the same time as the monthly, so it's actually not even that helpful to be looking at it right now, even though it would suggest that overall long term, as long as we are closing bi-weekly dildos above 11,500, we'll call it, which is all within that same range between like 11.5, 11.7-ish as we look down the lower term timeframes, then be more or less fine. But that does offer up a rather big range to the downside here, of course, especially if you're over leveraged, which looking at sometimes BitMEX liquidation board, that can be a very big consideration. So yeah. It does look like Bitcoin's actually getting a little bit more comfortable down here, but still, I'll be looking at this area right here. If this area gets broken, yes, I would be targeting an overall move back down towards the $11,000 base. Where does it catch itself between maybe 11.2 and 11,000? I don't have a strong preference there, but overall, that's a $500-$600 trade potentially, which is very much tradable here. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but if and only if this area gets broken, on at the very least a 4-hour dildo, maybe even a 2-hour gets it as well. Let's go check it out right here. Yeah, it probably does. So what we should do now is we should actually, as I check out the time, we should check out the probabilities charts. And right now, let's go on over here. And what we want to be using for the upside is the short-term resolution range. Well, I guess it's more like a medium-term resolution range, as Bitcoin's literally at 11.7 right now. But we'll do 12. We'll just do 12,000. I think that still works fine. And for the downside, what we can do here, seeing as we're coming at this a little bit more aggressively, we've still got about another $50 in that region. We'll call it 11,650-ish region. And let me just make sure that this is going well over there. Okay, cool. And so we'll use that as a downside resolution. But this now these meanings and interpretations have changed around. See, the upside resolution is only relevant for a short and medium term time frame trade. The downside resolution potentially long term in this case. So let's go check it out. We'll do 11,650, which probably gonna have a very high probability, especially when Bitcoin's only like $30 away from it. That's strange. This is the most bizarre. I have the weirdest boner right now. This is very bizarre. I was not expecting this at all. Obviously, I did not pre-plan this, but the probability of closing today's daily dildo above 12,000 is 46.10%. The probability of closing this daily dildo below 11,650, an area that we're quite literally only about $50 away from right now, is 27.5%. Now, obviously, 27.5% is very high. That can very easily happen, no doubt. 1 in basically 4 chances that will happen. But it's very interesting to see actually the upside probability much higher than the downside. I don't really have an explanation for that. Obviously it's math and everything, but very, very interesting. I'm curious what it says on the 12-hour. 12-hour going to show about the same thing. In fact, even more in favor of the upside, 45.5% probability and resolution to the upside versus just under 21% to the downside. That's more than, it's technically the probability of the upside resolution is 2x the downside. That's eye-opening right there. Very, very interesting. However, volume picks moms do seem to be turning down at the same time, which is typically not a good sign as well. Alrighty, so back onto it right here. Looks like Bitcoin, if I did have to call it right now, I do think that it's going to bounce from this area right here, put in some time going sideways between 11.7 where we are right now in this blue box at around 12,000. Any sort of a 4-hour dildo closure, especially above, at least in my opinion, 1250, I'd be looking for another move back up into the mid 12,000s essentially. But for right now, going to be testing some downside, and if it does break this, very bad for the Bitcoin laws here. But as far as traders go, well, who gives a fuck whether it's going up or down? It's all the same, really. Looking at the weekly Bollinger Bands, a little bit problematic here as well, getting a rejection at the top side of it as it is right now, but still a little bit too early in the week to kind of be judging this one, as we still have another 4 days left in the trading week to go. Here's how this one looks on a daily. Now you can see on the daily that we are just testing down to the 20 simple right now, which should be about the 21 exponential moving average. Actually, a little bit lower than that. That's interesting too, man. Usually you're going to see the 21 a lot higher in this regard, as it is going to be more reactive to the current price action, but fair enough. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So yes, if you are looking at this from a Bollinger Band perspective, very likely we do see a bounce here as well. The question is, where do we end the day? Or do we actually break one of the critical areas, intraday? That's what I'd be having an intentful eye on for, as it is right now. A little bit too early to be judging anything off of, major levels, so to speak. Do we have anything to be aware of on MACD's nuts? Coming down pretty hard there. But more importantly, it's coming down, but are we breaking in a critical area at the same time? No, in fact, Bitcoin price action just rising up while this does turn down. So interesting, overall, this is the time where I just like to go level by level, because there actually could be a nice downside trade here. That is about a $500, $600 trade. So fair enough, if it were to happen, but still long day to go. And I do think I'm probably gonna make this video a little bit on the shorter side, mostly because I really want to go to the gym right now and eat some food. I'm fucking hungry. Jesus, man. All I've eaten in the last few days is just steak. It's really, really good, but now I'm craving steak all day. I don't know how that works, man. It's the only food that I eat. Is there anything that I'm missing before we move on? Maybe we want to go check out Litecoin really quick. Litecoin coming down. I'd be looking for a bounce here as well. on short-term time frames, maybe a little bit lower down towards 59 and a half, or sorry, $60 even. So another buck and a half, maybe, somewhere around here. I would be looking for a bounce back up towards 63 and a half ish region. Do we want to check out how's Ripple doing how's Link doing? That's what I want to know. How's that fucking beautiful piece of work doing during this time? Yeah, coming down hard as well. I'd be looking for another swipe back down to $14. I do believe yesterday we said a move down to $14.50. We got that. But coming back down to test that region so soon is not indicative of strength. It does look to me like it wants to swipe it again, probably 14.5 to 14.25 down here. And then I would be looking for a bounce, yes. But overall, is the weekly problematic in this region? No, it actually just got a backfill. So if anything, I would not be comfortable calling a reversal in this at all. In fact, I'd be looking for a bounce within this region, if anything, as far as the higher term timeframes go, and probably works its way back up towards $17.50. But we really want to see, if this one is going to put in a reversal here, it would probably take a few weeks to actually happen before it actually does. Probably trade sideways here and fail to get back above $20. But for right now, I'd be looking at short-term and medium-term bounce. It's pretty much the same thing as Bitcoin. It looks like it wants to bounce off this region, probably back up towards $12,000-ish. That's essentially what I'd be thinking right now. Let's go check out Dixie and then maybe also Euro Dollar as well. Dixie is almost at our long-term level at 91.5, is it? Yeah, 91.5, just under there, around the 200 exponential moving average here on the monthly. And I do happen to think that it'll get around here. It's pretty fucking close already, to be fair. But what's another buck and a half or a buck? Yeah, what's another buck? Let's go look at Euro Dollar. This one seems to be like kind of like an analogous chart to it. Obviously, it trades against it, but still, hitting the 200 exponential moving average right here. And guess what? There's a stat that came out yesterday that was shared to me that didn't suggest, but said that Euro Dollar longs are at like all-time highs, which usually is going to be a counter indicator. Doesn't mean that it happens like that day or that hour, but over time it's going to be a big thing to be aware of, especially on when you're looking at a weekly and a monthly. So I'd still be using this area right here. I do believe that we did retest 119.5. Yes, indeed we did. We said that was likely to happen this week, but still I actually do think that a major high gets put in here on the monthly. But that's not going to happen even this month. It probably happens over the course of a few months if it is going to happen. And I can be massively wrong about that, especially if this condition is met. If the weekly closes above like 120, I'd be looking for an extension all the way up to 124, 1.25 region all the way up here. It would rally very, very hard, I would imagine. But for right now, I actually do think that it spikes this area, maybe even a couple more times into the 119.5 region. But overall, I do think that it very likely will reject from that region. Of course, can be wrong. That's why I have a point of failure right there too. Okay, alrighty, and this video is already 36 minutes. Probably a good time to wrap it up. Let's go back to Bitcoin over here. And let's start to siphon up all these ranges. Looks like we did hit the downside of the range right here. So we did say yesterday that if Bitcoin breaks 12.1, very likely a move down to 11.6, 11.7. We just got that. Nice how that works out on video too. I'd be looking for a bounce off this region and play out sideways between 11.7 and 12,000 for a little bit of time. And then any sort of a break on a 4-hour dildo above, let's call it like 12.50. I would err on the side of caution. I'm somewhat aggressive, somewhat cautious here, just because trend is still your friend, but there are some things saying hey, hold your horses right now. But if it does close above this region, then yes, I'd be targeting moves back up here towards 12.3 to 12.5. By the same token, if Bitcoin does break this region right here on even, I do think a 2-hour would probably get it, although I do like to say in these sorts of scenarios 4 hours, just because would err on the side of conservativeness as typical. If it were to close below this region, let's call it 11,650 to 11,700, rising over time, probably by end of day, it'll officially be 11,700. Then I would be targeting moves back down towards low 11,000s, anywhere between 11,000 even and 11,200. So that is, $500 trade ish, which is very much tradable. But for right now, it looks to me like it wants to bounce off this region. I'm curious if we even have any sort of divergences forming on lower term time frames. No, not really, as it is right now. So it's probably going to spend some time here. And trading sideways would be okay, I suppose, as it would still be holding the overall uptrend. But keep an eye on those critical levels because they very likely will drive the next big bad price action. So with that said, I would like to wish you well. I'd like to wish you the best. I'm gonna go eat a shit ton of food after lifting things up and putting them down. I'll be back later, or I'll be back tomorrow with some more video analysis. Take care, and until next time.